Typhoon Fong Wong just destroyed Taiwan, and scientists are terrified by what they found, because this storm is rewriting the laws of physics and meteorology in ways that should be impossible. Picture 25 inches of rain falling in a single day, submerging over 1,000 homes and forcing 8,300 people to flee for their lives. The harbor town of Suao just recorded the most rainfall in Taiwan's history, while 51 people lie injured and entire regions remain underwater. But this is not just another devastating typhoon. This is a weather phenomenon that is behaving in ways that have meteorologists completely baffled. Here is what is shocking scientists. Fong Wong maintained its destructive power for far longer than any storm should be able to, and satellite data shows it is generating rainfall patterns that do not match any known atmospheric models. The storm is somehow extracting moisture from sources that should not exist, creating a self-sustaining weather system that defies every prediction. Even more terrifying, seismic stations detected unusual underground activity directly beneath the storm's path, suggesting Fong Wong might be interacting with geological forces in ways never seen before. Is this just a freak weather event? Or are we witnessing the birth of a new type of superstorm that could make traditional typhoons look like gentle rain showers? Typhoon Fong Wong's very birth set off alarms across the meteorological world. November is supposed to be the quiet season for typhoons in the Western Pacific. Statistically, only a handful of storms ever form this late. Fong Wong is the 26th named system of the 2025 season, but its November 3rd genesis puts it among the rarest of outliers. The last time a typhoon struck Taiwan, this deep into autumn, was nearly 60 years ago. Dr. Chia-Sing Wang from Taiwan's Central Weather Administration put it simply: "We have entered meteorological terra incognita. Fong Wong is a storm that shouldn't exist. Late-season storms face cooler northern winds and usually weaken quickly, but Fong Wong defied every expectation. Instead of fading, it gathered strength over the South China Sea, fueled by a lingering pocket of warm water and a surge of tropical moisture that meteorologists were still struggling to explain. The storm's path was equally confounding. Most typhoons approach Taiwan from the east, but Fong Wong tracked in from the southwest, colliding with cold air from the north and creating a volatile atmospheric mix that no model had anticipated. Meteorologists scrambled to update their forecasts as the system intensified. The presence of a late-season typhoon raised immediate concerns: saturated soils from previous storms, weakened infrastructure, and a public already exhausted from weeks of alerts. The timing left disaster planners with little margin for error. Every new data point seemed to contradict the last. Model runs projected weakening, yet satellite images showed a tightening eye and expanding rain bands. By the time Fong Wong approached Taiwan, it had already rewritten the odds. The statistical rarity of its formation, combined with its unexpected path and stubborn intensity, left scientists not just surprised, but uneasy. This was not just another storm. It was a warning sign that the boundaries of typhoon season and the rules that govern it might be changing before our eyes. Forecast models, once trusted to guide every typhoon season, began to crack under the pressure of Fong Wong's unpredictability. For decades, Taiwan's meteorologists relied on the European Center for Medium-Range Weather Forecasts, the Global Forecast System, the Japan Meteorological Agency, and their own high-resolution weather research and forecasting model. These tools have tracked 20 to 25 storms each year, with late-season events fading quickly, rarely threatening land. In 2025, the rules changed. Soils across Yilan and Hualien were already saturated from a relentless parade of storms. The models, tuned to decades of historical data, simply could not keep up. Hours before landfall, model runs projected a weakening system and moderate rainfall. Yet ground stations in Suao and Dongaling began reporting hourly totals that dwarfed forecasts: 82 millimeters in a single hour, 164 millimeters over 3 hours. Satellite rainfall retrievals painted a different picture from the models, showing convective bands regenerating over the same mountain slopes, hour after hour. By midnight, the Central Weather Administration radar mosaics revealed persistent rain cores that refused to dissipate. Internal chat logs captured the mood. Staff said, "We have never seen sustained rain like this post-landfall. Our models are failing." The strain was visible on every forecast desk. Dr. Chia Sing Wang, usually measured, was blunt. He said, "This is not just a flood. This is a time when the very roots of our meteorological models are being questioned." Rainfall rates soared 40% above the highest predicted values. Warnings had to be upgraded in real time, sometimes too late for communities already cut off by rising water. The public, disaster planners, and scientists all looked to the models for answers. Instead, they found uncertainty. Each new data point forced a scramble to revise alerts and evacuation orders. The confidence that once anchored Taiwan's typhoon response began to erode, replaced by a growing sense of alarm among experts. The models, for the first time in memory, were no longer a shield. They had become a source of doubt. Sirens cut through the night in Mingli village as floodwaters swallowed the first floor of homes. Lin Qinghuang, Yilan's disaster response leader, pressed his radio to his ear, voice tense. Entire neighborhoods were cut off in minutes. Rescue teams, already stretched thin, scrambled to reach families stranded by chest-deep water. Body cam recordings captured the chaos, responders kicking down doors, hauling elderly residents onto inflatable rafts, and guiding children wrapped in blankets through swirling currents. Hundreds of schools, from elementary classrooms to technical colleges, fell silent as emergency closures swept across the region. Parents gathered at locked gates, clutching umbrellas and cell phones, desperate for updates. In Hualien, a teacher's text message flashed across a parent group chat. "No classes until further notice. Please stay safe." Roads vanished beneath muddy torrents. The main highway linking Yilan and Hualien disappeared under a landslide, leaving entire towns isolated. Lin's command center tracked more than 100 blocked roads and dozens of collapsed bridges by dawn. Power failures rippled through the night. Nearly 6,000 households in Yilan plunged into darkness, cell towers flickering as batteries drained. At the police station, officers used megaphones to direct traffic away from submerged intersections, their boots sloshing with every step. Social media lit up with desperate pleas. A mother in Suao posted a video of her young son perched on a kitchen counter, water lapping at his knees. Neighbors formed human chains to reach a stranded grandfather waving a flashlight from his rooftop. Lin's voice cracked during a late-night interview as he said Yilan is underwater. This is a record-breaking event, one in a 1,000-year probability. The scale of disruption forced impossible choices. Hospitals ran on backup generators. Pharmacies rationed medicine to those who could reach them. Each hour brought more distress calls, people trapped, roads impassable, families separated by the flood. For Lin and his exhausted team, every decision carried the weight of lives in the balance. 3:09 a.m. The Emergency Operations Center is tense, lit only by screens and the blue glow of status boards. Lin Qinghuang studies the rainfall totals, 5,907 outages reported, and the Lanyang and Heping River dams are nearing their structural limit. A debate crackles over the radio. Dam operators argue that releasing water now could send a deadly surge downstream, flooding villages that have so far stayed dry. But the risk of holding back is just as grave. One operator warns, "If the embankment fails, we lose the whole valley." Minutes drag by. The power grid is failing in a widening arc across Yilan. CEOC transcripts capture the urgency. Lin's voice, usually measured, cuts through. "We are at a 1,000-year probability. If we don't move, we lose everything." The operators hesitate. One insists the models still show a chance the rain will slacken, but the logs tell another story. Outage escalation, rising water, cell towers flickering out. Every decision is a gamble, with lives on both sides of the equation. Lin's authority is challenged in real time. A junior engineer pleads for a partial release, hoping to buy time. Another warns that a phased approach will do nothing if the next rain band hits as hard as the last. The clock ticks past 3:15 a.m. Outside, the roar of water is constant. Inside, every word is weighted with consequence. The transcript records the final exchange. We act now, or we act too late. With a nod, Lin gives the order. Valves are opened. Downstream alarms sound. In that moment, the system's fragility is laid bare. No margin for error, no room for delay. The decision is made, but the cost is unknown. The only certainty is that the old rules no longer apply. Wind speeds reached 185 kilometers per hour as Typhoon Fong Wong tore into the Philippines, flattening coastal villages and ripping the roofs from concrete homes. In its wake was widespread destruction. In Aurora province, the storm's landfall forced entire towns to evacuate under darkness, with families carrying only what they could hold. By dawn, nearly 1 million people had fled their homes across Luzon and eastern Visayas, crowding into schools, churches, and hastily built evacuation centers. Government officials reported more than 2,000 evacuation shelters, filled to capacity within hours. Local relief coordinator Maria Santos described the chaos. We had to turn people away. There was no more space, no more food. The water kept rising. Rivers burst their banks in Nueva Ecija and Isabela, submerging rice fields and sweeping away livestock. The National Disaster Risk Reduction Council listed over 1,200 barangays inundated, with hundreds of roads and bridges impassable. In Baler, the storm surge swallowed entire neighborhoods, leaving only the tops of palm trees and the faint outline of collapsed houses. Emergency crews battled landslides in Benguet, where entire hillsides gave way, burying homes and cutting off mountain villages. With power lines down and communication cut, families waited for rescue on rooftops as floodwaters climbed past window level. Helicopter teams reported seeing handwritten signs that read, "Help, food," water painted on rooftops and schoolyards. Aid convoys struggled to reach the worst-hit areas as landslides blocked the only roads in and out. At least 38 people were confirmed dead, and hundreds more were missing as the storm moved on. The humanitarian strain stretched every resource. Relief agencies warned of disease outbreaks as water supplies ran low and sanitation collapsed. The Philippine Red Cross called the situation a humanitarian catastrophe, with local officials pleading for more tents, medicine, and clean water. For the millions displaced, the nightmare was only beginning. Fong Wong's path through the Philippines left behind a landscape of ruin and a warning of what awaited Taiwan. At 11:27 p.m., a single message flashed across the Central Weather Administration group chat. Rainfall rates exceeding all model maxima. Code Red Protocol now. Dr. Lu Yen-fan, the Central Weather Administration senior hydrometeorologist, had been tracking the data for hours, watching as the numbers broke every threshold in the playbook. Suao's gauges had just tipped past 648 millimeters in 24 hours, nearly double the agency's highest red alert trigger. In the control room, pressure sensors reported an 8 millibar drop in under 4 hours, a collapse so abrupt that Dr. Lu's hands shook as she typed the alert. Forecast screens flickered with error codes. The high-resolution WRF model, usually the gold standard for Taiwan's mountains, showed rainfall tapering off, but the radar told a different story. Convective bands were anchoring and regenerating over Yilan and Hualien, feeding on a persistent stream of moisture that no algorithm had predicted. Dr. Lu scrolled through satellite composites, searching for an explanation. There was no Fujiwara effect, no companion cyclone to blame. Instead, the storm's core seemed to pull vapor from the Philippine Sea, bypassing every known atmospheric barrier. In the chat, a junior analyst wrote, "This is not possible. The models are broken." Dr. Liu replied with a single phrase that would become legend among Taiwan's forecasters. "Forget the models. Watch the water." Within minutes, the Central Weather Administration upgraded all advisories to extreme torrential rain. Emergency alerts pinged across 4 counties. The rainfall rate in Hualien's Barrier Lake region spiked toward 800 millimeters per hour, 4 times the red alert threshold. As evacuation orders went out, meteorologists abandoned their model outputs and switched to real-time radar and ground reports. For the first time in decades, the science of prediction gave way to the reality of survival. The old rules no longer applied. Dr. Liu's warning echoed through the night. "This is a storm outside our experience. Act as if the worst is still to come." Rainfall gauges in Yilan and Hualien delivered numbers that left meteorologists speechless. Suao's station clocked 82 millimeters in a single hour, 164 millimeters in 3 hours, and a staggering 810 millimeters over 24 hours. Those totals dwarfed even the boldest satellite estimates. The difference was undeniable. When the ground data was compared side by side, satellite retrievals missed the mark by as much as 350 millimeters in the hardest hit zones. Models predicted broad, moderate bands, but ground truth revealed narrow corridors of relentless, pounding rain. Traditional retrievals underestimated peak rainfall, especially where convective bursts trained over the same mountain slopes. The contrast with satellites and models could not have been clearer. Professor Daisuke Takahashi of Tokyo University reviewed the satellite composites and shook his head. The vapor corridors showing up on GPM and Himawari 8 are unlike anything on record. This is a new challenge for climate science. Analysts pored over error maps, tracing the greatest shortfalls to Yilan and North Hualien, where orographic uplift and band regeneration pushed the limits of every known forecast tool. The numbers forced a reckoning. The models and the satellites they relied on simply were not built for a storm like this. Seismic stations in Yilan and Hualien registered a sharp increase in microseismic activity as Fong Wong's eye wall passed overhead. The signal spiked in the 0.1 to 0.5 Hz band, a frequency range known to reflect the pounding of storm-driven ocean waves against the coast. Dr. Wang Liwei, chief geophysicist at Academia Sinica, reviewed the waveforms and delivered a measured verdict. "In 25 years, I have never seen storm-induced microseisms this clear and sustained. The ground itself seemed to vibrate with the storm's rhythm." While some speculated about deeper geological effects, Dr. Wang cautioned that these signals matched known patterns. They were extraordinary in scale, but not in kind. Even as the scientific debate played out, the economic toll mounted by the hour. Early estimates put direct losses at over 28 billion new Taiwan dollars, nearly $1 billion US. More than 20,000 hectares of crops were ruined, and insurance claims were already double the previous typhoon record. Taiwan's semiconductor industry, a pillar of the global supply chain, faced partial shutdowns as floodwaters crept toward critical fabs. Dr. Wang's analysis cut through the speculation. These seismic readings are a warning. The risks are not just scientific, they are economic, and they are immediate. For policymakers and business leaders, the message was unambiguous. The threat from storms like Fong Wong now reaches far beyond the weather charts. Right now, meteorologists are rewriting forecasts as Taiwan faces storms that no longer fit the old models. With 25 inches of rain in a single day and rainfall patterns that science cannot explain, the boundaries of what is possible are shifting. The next superstorm could arrive without warning. Our climate is changing, and the world is not ready for what comes next. 5 Filipino volcanoes are waking up at the exact same time. Scientists are shocked because this has never happened before in recorded history, and what's causing it could reshape the entire Pacific Ring of Fire. Picture Mount Mayon, Taal, Bulusan, Canlaon, and Hibok, 5 deadly giants scattered across different islands, all suddenly showing signs of life within weeks of each other. Steam vents opening, ground swelling, earthquakes rattling communities that haven't felt tremors in decades. This isn't coincidence. This is a geological nightmare that has experts scrambling for answers. The Philippines sits on one of the most dangerous volcanic zones on Earth, but these 5 volcanoes have never synchronized their activity like this. Each one has its own deadly history. Taal killed 1,300 people in 1911. Mayon buried entire towns in 1814. And Hibok wiped out 500 people in 1951. Now they're all stirring at once, suggesting something massive is happening deep beneath the islands. But here's what's terrifying scientists. Underground magma chambers that were thought to be separate might actually be connected by hidden pathways. If one erupts, it could trigger a domino effect that turns the entire archipelago into a volcanic war zone. Are we watching the countdown to the Philippines' worst natural disaster, or has it already begun? April 2025. The FIVOLCS Command Center in Quezon City is already running on high alert when the first wave of seismic alarms hits before dawn. At 5:51 a.m., Canlaon's seismic network records a sudden cluster of volcanic earthquakes, over 60 in a single morning. Within minutes, the monitoring dashboard flashes red, data feeds from Negros Island spiking with ground shaking and gas emissions. By 6:47 a.m., Canlaon erupts, sending a plume more than 4 kilometers into the sky. FIVOLCS upgrades the alert level to 3, and the message goes out. Evacuate 5 barangays, watch for lahar. Local government units are notified in less than 20 minutes. But Canlaon isn't alone. As engineers scramble to validate the readings, Bulusan's sensors in Sorsogon start showing a swarm of volcano-tectonic quakes, nearly 300 in 4 days. Steam and gas venting from the summit reach 400 meters high. The sulfur dioxide output jumps to more than 1,000 tons per day. Within a week, FIVOLCS raises Bulusan's alert level as well, warning of possible sudden explosions. Taal's network, meanwhile, records a surge in tremors and gas flux. On May 3rd, the alert level quietly moves to 2. By the end of the month, all 3 volcanoes are on heightened watch. The command center's main screen now glows with overlapping warning banners, each color-coded for urgency. Data bandwidth strains under the load. Real-time seismic, gas, and satellite feeds pouring in from Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. Staff work in overlapping shifts, led by FIVOLCS Director, Dr. Teresito Bacolcol, and Senior Volcanologist Ma Antonia Bornas. Each volcano has its own crisis team, but the lines between them blur as the signals multiply. Situation reports are drafted, revised, and pushed out to local officials and the National Disaster Risk Reduction and Management Council. Within hours, evacuation orders are issued in Negros, curfews declared, and flights diverted from ash-laden airspace around Iloilo. The Department of Health circulates air quality warnings as sulfur dioxide levels spike. Social media fills with conflicting advisories, tourism boards downplaying risk, local officials demanding clarity. FIVOLCS issues 3 overlapping bulletins in 5 days, each one more urgent than the last. Amid the chaos, the command center's dashboard becomes the nerve center of the nation. Every spike in seismicity, every plume, every tremor is logged and relayed in real time. The sense of urgency is relentless.